everybody. So these are functions in Delphi. Functions, built-in functions with Delphi. You have them in the library. You can use them. These are reserved words in your Delphi code. We're going to go through these few. There's many, many more. And there's one extra one that we're going to use, and that is an input box. So before we go on to all of these functions here that are named on these buttons, we're going to go in the onActivate event of this code and use a function called an input box. Always use onActivate. You do know that there is onCreate and onShow. You can use onCreate if you want. You can use onShow down here. Use that one even. Well, okay, just to change it up a bit, we'll use onCreate. It works the same way. Basically, when the program is created, then the processor will do the following. So we go and double click in that area and we get on form create. So over here, we're going to use another function called an input box. It is literally a virtual edit box, well, runtime, created in runtime. So the input box function, now first of all, you must remember that functions are always on the right hand side. Input box, it always says of an assignment statement. Something equals input box, and in brackets, we're going to put a few parameters, but the result of an input box will be a string. So we need a variable here, var. Actually, because it's an onCreate, we're going to make a global variable, s input. I'm going to make it a string. See, I put it over there, but I could also put it up here under private. So let's go put it in private, global variable. And we'll say s input. I made it global because I'm actually going to use this input in all of these button click events. Okay, that's why it's global. Don't need any local variables. Input box is a function, built-in function Delphi, and you saw that there were some parameters. You have to open the bracket and then you'll see, look at these tooltips here, they tell you 1, there's a semicolon, 2, there's a semicolon, no, ER, and then there's another semicolon. So input box, the first thing that we're going to put in here is a string which asks us, they're all strings by the way, all of these are strings. The caption, in other words the heading for our message dialog box that's going to come up. See what happens, you see what it looks like. It's a bit like magic. The first thing is we're going to say enter the input, and then comma, and I use a comma, can you see it automatically goes to the next. The second thing that has to be put in here, which is a string, so we're going to say here below, I'm just putting a word in there, and then comma, and then you can see we have the third string. Now the third string is the place where the user is going to type, so I'll keep that as an empty string. I could put something in here, you know, something. So I've got 3 strings. The first one is being a title, then a subtitle, and then where the person's going to type. Let's go run it and see what happens. This is in the onCreate event, remember? So you're not going to click any button to make this happen. It's going to happen before you click any buttons. Input box is our function. So you run the program, and you see that? Look there, there it is. It's got something written there. You don't actually want it, you know. I shouldn't have said below, I should have, you know, said here, enter the input, here, into that, and you click OK or cancel. Okay, so I'm just going to click cancel. So there's no input. Let's just keep that as an empty string, and then instead of below, we'll type the word here, colon. Alright, so I'm double clicking the button, enter the input here, there we go. So there's our nice little input box. Can you see it's like a virtual edit box, and you can just type stuff in there, whatever you want to type in there, and then you click OK, and then basically the S input is going to hold whatever you typed in. Simple, just got to memorize the 3 string parameters. We use it very, very often. Right, now we're going to go to our button clicks. We're going to use S input on each one of these. So what we're going to do is, with float to string F, remember we used it before, when we click this button, we're going to convert whatever's that input box into, well, we're not actually going to convert anything from that input box. We're going to use a number and display it as a string in label 1. So float to string F, yeah, because remember, whatever goes in the input box, if we go and run it and put in a number there, like 25.67 or in 36, 25.36, there, I've put a number in, click OK. That is a string in input, in the input box, it's a string. So what we can actually do, as well as just to demonstrate, in the onCreate event, let's go and put the input into our label. Okay, so I'll just go and put that S input into the caption property of the label, displaying whatever S input is. So let's go and do it. I'm going to type 123.45, click OK. You see, there it is. We've displayed the input from the input box straight into the label in the onCreate event. That was before we clicked any button. Okay, now we're going to go click buttons, and we're going to do things with each one just to demonstrate what float to string F does, demonstrate uppercase, and so on, and demonstrate each one of those. Let's go and demonstrate float to string F. Well, with float to string F, we know that it's going to take a real number and convert it to a string. Float to string, remember, take note how this function is being used on the right hand side of the equal sign over there. So we will do that, and we'll put a number in, 123.456. There's our number, FF. Let's do it fixed. Let's make it 8 decimals and 1, round it to 1 decimal point. Okay, so I'm using my float to string F. I demonstrated to you yesterday. That's the number that I'm converting. Can you see I've actually put it in there as a number? Let's run the program. Hope my decimal separator is correct. So let's say none. We don't want any input now. Okay, let's click float to string F. There it is. It's rounded the 123.456 to 123.5. Now, what if you wanted to use float to string F in a rich edit? Just to demonstrate our functions, how we call them, let's go and put a rich edit quickly on the form. So if I wanted to put float to string F, if I wanted to add the name to the rich edit, that number, I would do the following. I would say rich edit 1 dot lines dot add, and then float to string F, all of that lot goes in there. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to demonstrate the use of 2 functions. Can you see it's displayed in both now? How did we use float to string F in the assignment statement, on the right hand side of an assignment statement, and then in the rich edit.lines.add we use the same function in brackets. So that is the 2 ways that you can use functions. You either use them on the right hand side of the equal sign or in a parameter list. This is a parameter. Whenever you see brackets, you know you're dealing with parameters. In other words, things that are going into something. Rich edit 1.lines.add is a procedure that's going to receive float to string F, the function which is converting that number to a string and rounding it off at the same time to 1 decimal place. Right, that's done. Now let's do the next one, uppercase. Now we're going to use our S input and convert it to uppercase, okay? Of course, if it's a number, it can't convert it, but we're going to type in a string in our S input. And when we do our input box over here, when onCreate happens, we're going to type in a string and we're going to display it. Then we want to convert that string to uppercase. So, when this happens, then you know there's trouble. Okay, so basically you have to make sure that you have saved your work. I don't really have to save this. Okay, I'm just saying okay. That's basically my Delphi going a little bit haywire. So I'm going to Control Alt Delete, get into Task Manager, Control Alt Delete Task Manager, and hopefully, and I haven't actually saved since I did the last code, but that doesn't matter. You've seen it on video now. I'm glad this happened because now you can know what to do. I'm just going to click, oops, there's my task manager, end my Embarcadero RAD Studio, end task, and then that is basically closed. So that's fine. I will just open the program again. Luckily, I've got something saved. Maybe not. Oh, I know where it's saved. Right, so let's open it again. All these little things happen, and that's why it's important for you to save all the time. So that's part of your lesson. Save constantly. Save, okay, fine, okay, close. Oh, yeah, okay, that's cool. So it has saved something. I'll save all quickly. Right, so there it saved that. Float a string if we've done uppercase. Let's do uppercase. So we're going to take S input, whatever that is, and we're going to convert it to uppercase and display it in the label 1. So I'm say label1 dot caption equals uppercase. Take note how the functions on the right hand side of the equal sign. S input. There we go. So that's going to save it into the label 1. Remember, we had a rich edit, and we can do the same quickly. Not that I want to. We will do it quickly. Edit, rich edit. Go and put that there, and in our uppercase, we'll say rich edit 1 dot lines dot add S input. Well, we've got to uppercase it, don't we? Oops. Lines dot add uppercase. Uppercase is a function. Open brackets, S input. The main thing to remember is that functions are called in these 2 separate ways. And also remember that you're going to make sure you put the right thing. Uppercase receives a string, converts it to all uppercase. So let's go and file save all, and then run it. I like pie. Click OK, and click on uppercase, and there it is. For some reason it didn't, because I clicked the button so many times, that's why. Alright, we didn't actually put label1.caption over here. Let's go and put this code back here. It saved something, but not all of it for us. It did a recovery of some of the code, and not all of the code. Okay, now we're going to do uppercase. Now uppercase only works with one character. Uppercase works with a whole string. Uppercase will only uppercase one character. Let's say we want to get the first character of a person's name. It must be a capital letter. So we will take S input, well, we're going to have S input, eh? Remember, S input is our global variable that we get from our input box over here. We're going to take the first character and uppercase it. So what we do is this, we say S input character number 1 equals uppercase S input character number 1. What if we want to uppercase the last one as well? I mean, no, let's make it character number 3. So S input character number 3, we're going to make that uppercase S input character number 3. Well, that is basically saying we want to make the first character an a capital letter, and the third character must also be capital letter. I know it's weird, but that's what we're going to do. And to test that it works, we're going to just copying and pasting that code in here. File, save, all. So what we've done, we determine the characters. We can pull out the characters with square brackets and the character number of a string. Every string has a character number in it. I mean, sorry, every string, the characters are numbered from 1 to the end of the string. So the word Joe will have 3 characters. The first character is J, the second character is O, and the third character is E. For Joe, character number 3. Let's go and type Joe in and see what happens. Right, Joe, in small letters. Yeah, put it all in small letters, click OK. Right, so Joe's S input. Now if I click on uppercase, oh my word, character number 2 is now in lowercase. We didn't uppercase anything. No. Oh! This is why. S input. I copied and pasted the code from there, forgetting that I had uppercased everything. Silly. S input. That was stupid. Right, so I copied and pasted without modifying. You have to be careful when you copy and paste too. Right, so let's try it again. And we type J-O-E, small letters, click OK. We know it's small letters because that's what we typed in. And then we click on uppercase, J, a small letter O, and a capital E. There we go. Right, so now the next one. The next button is odd. So the person's going to type in a number and we're going to find out if it's odd or not. Well, that means we have to ask a question. If a number is odd, we will display odd in the, well, we'll display not even. Okay, so we're going to use S input here. S input being the one from the input box, and we're going to convert it to a real number. But then we're going to have to use a real number variable. Or we can do the following. We can say if string to float S input, if it's odd, if odd, open brackets, string to float, then we will put something in our label saying not even. Else we will say our label will display that it is even. Now that's quite a mouthful there. What I could do is put in a number here. Let's put in number 360. 3,685,7, a big number, okay? We know it's odd, but anyway, let's go and see if that number is odd. This is a function called odd. It takes a number and goes and checks to see if it's odd and returns true or false. So we can say if that equals true, then, so there's 2 ways we can write. If odd equals true, then that, else that, or we can just keep it as odd. I like to put here if odd equals true, it's more detailed. If this odd function returns true. It's an odd, it's basically a Boolean function. It'll return true or false. So let's go and see what it returns for that number. Okay, we're not going to put anything in here because we're using 3657. So click on odd, not even. Right, but what if you wanted to use S input? So then we're going to have to say, well, we can use a variable as well. VAR, R number, colon real. We can say R num will be equal to string to float S input. Remember the S input being coming from the input box, this one here. So let's run the program that's going to convert the string to a floating point or a real number. We don't use string to float very often, but in this instance we're going to. And then this one here must have a number inside here. A number variable, you know, a number. Could be integer too. In fact, I think it has to be an integer. Yep. Odd has to only receive an integer. So we have an issue there. We have to go and change that to an integer. Num is an integer. We have to only put an integer for this odd function. That was a nice bit of discovery. I can't say I use odd very often. So anyway, let's go put a big long integer in here. That's an integer, eh? It's a very, very long one. And then we click on this odd. See, look how long that number is. Click on odd. Oops. It's not an integer valid in. Oh, maybe it's too large. Okay, fine. Go and run it again. 2541. Right. Click on the odd button. Not even. We discovered a couple of things today, didn't we? That odd only receives integers, not reals. Plus, you can't have a very, very, very large integer variable. Okay, so let's go and get to our next one. The next two functions. So this function returns a true or false. Input box returns a string. Getting some input. Uppercase returns only one character that's capitalized. Uppercase will return a string, a whole string that's capitalized. And now we're going to go to the square and square root functions. Now square, we're going to discover what that returns. We're going to say S input is going to be, let's make it a real number, hey? So I'm going to say R num colon real. Then I'll say R num, I've got to convert my S input to a real, so it's string to float S input, and then I'm going to calculate the square root of it. We call it the square. Square, hey? We're doing the square, not the square root, just squaring it. So we'll say R num equals square R num. I can have another variable saying whatever equals that. I'm just replacing. Okay, we can use another one, or we can say R num equals R new, and say R new equals square. If I'm happy to replace R num with a new num with a square of R num, but if I want to use a different variable, then I can use a different variable. As long as I keep it real here, real, and then square, we're squaring a real number. Let's go and see if it works. Label one dot caption equals float to string. I won't bother to convert it in a format. I'll just say R new here. Take note, I'm not using the F for format, so I'm only putting one thing in brackets. This float to string receives a real number and returns a string. And F means if you're going to format it in a special way. So that's what I got so far. Square will receive a number and square the number. Let's go and see. And R and use my different variable I'm going to use. Let's go and see what happens. Now I'm going to put a real number in here. 12.454. Now I'm going to square it, and there it is. That's the square of that number. Take note, I'm not using the Richard anymore. We're just going to use this thing. We've got two more to do. Right, now we're going to do square root. Now we've discovered with square that it takes a real number. It can also take an integer, by the way. Want to try it as an integer? Actually, no, we're not going to. Yeah, let's try it as an integer here. I know, right? I know, and I knew. Right, there's a quick way to edit. You highlight everything, click the two little pens over there, yellow pens, sync edit mode, and then you just change it in one place and it'll change it everywhere else. See that? Cool trick for changing things quickly. Now this can't be string to float, it's got to be string to int. And not be float to string, it's got to be int to string. Now let's see if square works with an integer. I want to bet that it does not. Right, that's what it, oops, into string. Does it say into string? Ah, it doesn't work. It has to be. See, look what happened. See? Into string cannot be called with these arguments. I knew. If I just leave that out and try and run the program, let's see. I'm going to put in a integer here, and I'm going to say square. Okay, we haven't got a display. Why doesn't it want to say into string? Oh, because it's, yeah, sorry. I forgot to change the data type. Yeah, I changed it to inum and inew to real. I mean, it was real, and I forgot to change the data type. My mistakes are actually quite good, so that we can know that everybody makes mistakes. So inum, let's see if inum, if I make it an integer, is this going to work fine? Square, yep. So we learned something cool today. Square works with integers and real numbers. Okay, let's go and do the next one. Square root. Okay, square root. Now we're going to find out if that works with integers and reals, or only with real, only a real. What kind does it return? For instance, the square will return an integer and it will return a real number, which is super awesome. Pretty flexible. But square root, that's a big problem here. I'm going to first try with a real number. I'll tell you what, let's try with an integer just for fun and see what happens. Copying and pasting that code, I'm saying square root. See what I did there? I just added a t, I'm using the same variables, just added a t for square root, getting the square root of a number. Now, nope, does not work, so you have to use real numbers only. Rnum and rnew. See what I did there? I used my sync edit mode. What was it again? You highlight everything. You want to change the variable names, you click on those two little pens, and then you can start typing anything you want. I'm just going to keep it as rnum. I don't want it to be anything else. It changes the variable names everywhere they occur in that highlighted section. So there we go. And this string to int cannot be, it's got to be string to float. And this now has to be float to string. Okay, that has to be float to string. And again, we're not going to format it. But if you want me to, okay, fine, I'll format it. F-R-new. If I'm going to put an F there, then I'm going to go like this. Ff fixed, comma 8, comma, let's use a -1 and see what happens. So I'm going to put in a long number. We're going to round it to the nearest tens, not to the nearest units, not to the nearest single number, not to the nearest whole number. We're going to round to the nearest tens number. Okay, so I'm going to put in a number that's quite we're square rooting, not remember. So 659. Let's find the square root of 659, shall we? Click on square root. Yeah. What's the square root of r num if it's that big long number? I used -1 and it didn't give me a nice answer, did it? Let's try -2. Probably not going to work either. I think I might have to use math or something. 659. Well, square root of that. Ah, I know why. Yeah, because we rounded to the -2s. Okay, let's go and put in a larger number. Remember that the square root is going to be much smaller than the, I've got 654,218 there. Square root of that is 800. So we're rounding to the nearest hundreds there. That's -2. If you want to round to the nearest 10 digits, let's go and put in a number that is also large. I don't remember what that number was, but anyway, square root of that number is 810. You see we rounded to the nearest 10 digits. So that is the -1 there. If we wanted to round it to only one decimal place, then we use 654,819. Okay, it's a long number. One decimal place, square root. You see it's now 2. Right, so there's that demonstrated. Square root and square. Square will return either an integer or a real. Square root will only return a real number. So you have to have a real number to store the square root of something in. And I just demonstrated this float to string f. Right, last one is time to string. This is quite exciting. Well, not really, but I mean, you know. If you want to go and display the time, today's time, in a label, I want the time that it is right now, this second, to be displayed in the label. I'll do the following. Label1.caption equals time to string, and in brackets I have to put only a time dot a type, not a date. Date will return today's date, but the word time will return the time on the system clock. Believe it or not, yes. So both of these are reserved words, time to string and time, reserved words. That is a little function that returns the time. This is a function that has the time as a parameter. You can put any time in there, time dot a type. We don't play with it very often, guys. This is just a demonstration for something unusual. Well, not really, but it's interesting. I'm not going to put anything in my S input. I'm just going to click on time to string, and there's the exact time right now, this second. Right, I think that is all now. I will see you tomorrow. Good.